Sexuality is a very hot theme since centuries, millennia. It involves people's souls and people discussions. Let's start from this assumption. Love and sexual energies are the forces that move the sun and the other stars, as Dante Alighieri wrote in the remarkable book The Divine Comedy. And we exist and we move into the world, we move our steps into the world through Aphroditic energy. And we start relationships between each others with objects, with experiences, with creatures, because we are moved by the Aphroditic principle of pleasure and of desire, which is what nourishes our sexual energy, and it's the fire that nourishes us. After the patriarchalization of thought and culture through all the monotheistic religions, the body, sexuality, pleasure, matter started being considered as a shame, as something to be ashamed of. While in Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality, body is sacred, sex is sacred, pleasure is sacred. And sacred sexuality is the preferential way of communication with the divine, in this case, Aphrodite. So sacred sex, sacred Aphroditic sex is a prayer. Sacred Aphroditic sexuality is very similar to Tantra, but these two are two traditions that also have many differences. So, between sacred Aphroditic sexuality and Tantra, which one shall I choose?
Hi, I am Maya Vassallo di Florio. In this space, I answer the most common questions about personal blooming and empowerment. Touching philosophical, spiritual, cultural, and social themes, I support you in making the difference in the world. I'm here to guide you blooming in the marvelous creature you are, one petal at a time.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this beautiful Aphroditic episode of Aphrodisia entitled Sacred Sexuality or Tantra. Which of the two shall I choose? And this episode was born thanks to a question that Elisabetta from the Italian Aphroditic community asked me. She deliberately asked me to make an Aphrodisia episode on this, so there is also the Italian version. But before starting with the episode, I want to remember you that just tomorrow we will start with the super galactic promotions due to the Black Friday week on all my best online courses and private bespoken sessions. So if you want to work with me on Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and on sacred sexuality, on your empowerment, on personal blossoming, and become the best version of yourself in a sacred, magical, juicy, sensual way, click in the link in the description and you will find all the infos. And if you didn't subscribe to my newsletter, please do it, because every week you will receive precious, enriching, valuable contents on sacred sexuality and Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality for free. And keep an eye on the email after you subscribe, because you will receive all the special offerings that for a few days I will give in the occasion of this Black Friday. So let's open this episode of today, Sacred Sexuality and Tantra. Let's start from the common points. They have many things in common. The first one is that, like Tantra, Aphroditic sacred sexuality has often been misunderstood. Which ones are the misunderstandings? I mean, the misunderstandings both for Tantra and for Aphroditic sacred sexuality. First of all, both of them are not just an ensemble of sexual techniques. These are two remarkable traditions. Tantra, you know it. Maybe you don't know about Aphroditic Philosophy and Spirituality, which I founded and reclaimed and I teach worldwide. But you can find more in the links in the box below in the description. My teachings have been quoted by the best Italian and international universities like Oxford University, John Cabot University, and in Italy, La Sapienza University of Rome and the University of Turin. So we are talking about remarkable traditions in both cases. Both of them, Tantra and Aphroditic Philosophy and Spirituality and Sacred Sexuality, are a life philosophy, a modus vivendi, a way of living, a way of seeing and creating the everyday world, everyday reality. Both of them are not just the art of seduction, which is a term that has been misunderstood as well. Maybe I will create another episode of Aphrodisia on the word seduction and how it has been demonized and misunderstood. But both of them are not the art of making someone crazy in the bed and enjoying sexuality. So it's that, of course, but it is a consequence, a sacred consequence of something bigger, ecstatic. Both of them are not the art of gaining power over the other person, but indeed is the art of surrendering, of relaxing, of dropping into pleasure. Both Tantra and Aphroditic sacred sexuality are not pushy, are not something to push and to work hard. Instead, they are something into which to slide, into which you can drop and surrender. So it's not putting and pushing, it's taking, unveiling, relaxing, and floating. Second common point, they both are based on non-separation, on an holistic way of thought, on the non-dichotomy, and they both are based on the non-dual reality of the comprehension, the harmonious comprehension of all the polarities into a continuum, into a dance, into a movement. So it's a completely different way of conceiving reality, of understanding reality, of mapping and looking at reality. Different way of letting our brains work, a different mindset. A little bit similar to the Taoist yin and yang theory. And it has very much in common also with the esoteric principle, as above, so below, as within, so without. Third point in common, they both are based on the sacredness of body, the sacredness of matter, the sacredness of pleasure. The sacredness of matter, I want you also please to notice that matter contains in itself the word matter, mother. So how can we not consider sacred the matter, which is our mother, Mother Nature, the mother of creation? Fourth thing in common between Aphroditic sacred sexuality and Tantra is that they both consider sexuality as sacred, as the preferential way of communication with the divine. In one case, Aphrodite, in the other case, other goddesses. Fifth point in common, they both promote the healthiness of living into the present moment. This is why I often talk about Aphroditic mindfulness, because yes, it's mindfulness, but mindfulness it's just a modern invention for something very ancient, which is staying in the present moment, staying in the full presence of the body, of the relationship, of the oneness. Aphroditic mindfulness is that, plus the pleasure of it, taking all the pleasure of it, all the beauty of it, all the art and poetry of it, and doing it elegantly and beautifully and pleasurably. So in Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and in Tantra, there is a great importance given to sensuality, sensoriality. And so there is what I call the Aphroditic synesthesia of senses. So we can feel the pleasure of the glance, of the touch, of the taste, of the sound, of the perfume all together, and being totally holistically involved in the pleasure through senses. Sixth point in common between Tantra and the sacred Aphroditic sexuality is the importance given to relationship with the body, with the emotions, with the sensations, with the senses, relationship with the soul, with all the parts of our psyche, relationship with nature, which is goddess, which is the mother, relationship with other beings, other people, situations, objects, creatures, trees, plants, everything is an expression of the goddess. And we are aware, in both cases, Tantra and Aphroditic sacred sexuality, that we are one, in an orgasmic oneness. And we are in the adoration of the other in the moment in which we are in a sexual intercourse. Sex is way two souls have to communicate. So we adore the other person as an expression of the goddess. And in this vision of relationship and adoring the other as part of the goddess, as an expression of the goddess, we root our philosophy of making love with life. Seventh point in common, both Tantra and Aphroditic sacred sexuality put a great accent, a great importance on care and on the healing power of beauty, on rituality, on ceremonies, on prayers, on care in general, which has to be mutual, circular, on details. So this is something Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and Tantra have in common, definitely. Eighth point in common, maybe you don't know, but also Tantra, like Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality, is based on the goddess spirituality. Yes, because Tantra originated from matriarchal societies based on the goddess spirituality, as Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality, just exactly like that. So these were the things in common between Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and sacred sexuality and Tantra. But what are the things which differ between these two traditions? The differences regard mainly the frame of sense of these two traditions, obviously, because practices may be similar, values can be similar, but the general vision, the frame of sense are different. First difference, masculine and feminine energies of creation, Shiva Shakti in the Tantra, are not considered as god and goddess into Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality. Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality explains us that the symbol of Tao, for example, is not masculine and feminine, nor god and goddess, but goddess is the whole Tao, is the whole circle, is the cosmic mother of creation and regeneration, she who gives life to everything and destroys also. So she's all the polarities, all the circles and the cycles, everything. She's everything. She's the whole Tao. Okay? So this is the first difference. So we don't distinguish into God and goddess. Goddess is not the other part of God. She is the whole Tao. So this is the first difference. Second difference, both in Tantra and Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality, yes, there is a great importance to secret ceremonies of initiation, which have to be secret because the mystery has to be kept a mystery in order to be unveiled occasionally just for the initiated, because there is a path of initiation and of study, and it has to be a surprise, of course, something to be unveiled and not to be spoiled. So the secret is important. The spiritual guide is important in both cases. Otherwise, it's just pretending to work on ourselves, but it's just continuing nourishing our ego mainly, we need the mirror of a teacher, of a spiritual guide, if we want to prosecute. So eclectic and solo paths at a certain point don't work. We all need a guide. We all need a teacher, okay? So this is something in common between Tantra and Aphroditic sacred sexuality. But what differs in this case is the obedience. It's a term we don't use, a term I don't particularly like. Instead of the obedience to the spiritual guide, to the teacher, I speak about a relationship of trust. So, of course, there is a difference of rules, but not of importance. It's not hierarchic. It's circular. There are different rules, teacher and student, but the relationship is based on trust, true trust. Third thing that differs is that the final aim in Tantra is the liberation from the incarnation wheel, because somehow Tantra has passed through centuries and centuries of patriarchy. So it's different in Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality. We believe that this dimension of existence is as sacred as the other world. So the aim is not to be liberated by the wheel of incarnation, but to enjoy this life and the other. Enjoying the journey, enjoying the process, the journey, and traveling between the dimensions. Fourth difference. Yes, as I said before, there are similar instruments, there are similar practices, similar asanas, so positions of the body, similar breathing techniques, pranayama, similar meditations and visualizations, use of mandala, use of mantras, of sounds, of puja, which are ceremonies for us, similar mudras, but the difference is the cultural strata on which we found the tradition. So the culture is different. Why? The lands in which the traditions are rooted are different. So different herbs, different foods, different landscapes, which is goddess. The landscape is the goddess. Different colors, different mother tongue, different ways, therefore, due to different languages, different ways of mapping and describing the reality, different narrations, different stories and mythologies, different perfumes, different habits, different gestures, different weather, different feeding. So there are difference is normal because the soil, the cultural soil is different. Fifth difference, because of the difference of cultural frame and sense frame, which is the final vision of both tradition, Tantra and Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and sacred sexuality. In Tantra, the final mission, the final vision and intent is the liberation from this dimension, from this wheel of incarnation. While here in Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality, as I said before, is the celebration of pleasure and of the paradise on this earth, just as Belinda Carlisle used to sing, "Who heaven is a place on earth." Heaven is a place on earth for Aphroditic tradition. So we want to fully enjoy heaven as a place on earth. We want to enjoy pleasure, beauty, harmony, and sacredness here as we do in the other world. Sixth point, to answer to Elisabetta's question, which one of the two shall I choose, Tantra or Aphroditic sacred sexuality, to study, to live, to follow, to experience? It depends. This is the answer. So if you want just to work on sexuality, if you think these two are just two ways of having better sex, of course it is a way of having better sex, both Aphroditic, sacred sexuality and Tantra. But if your aim is just having a better sex, it's up to you really. They are equal. The techniques are the same. But the final visions are different. The final sense frame is different. And it is so important not to do things just because it's fun. Yes, of course, we can do it for pleasure, for the sake of pleasure, but also understand where are we going, who are we, and where are we going, why we are here, what do you believe in, which world do you want to contribute to create. So why are you doing it? Your why is important. So we need to really have clear in mind what are the values, our own values, and the values of Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality. And I will talk more about the values of Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and sacred sexuality, but in the description to this episode, you can find an episode which is dedicated just on this subject. What is Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and sacred sexuality and the values? So you first consider what are your values, which is a tremendously amazing tool for the self-knowledge. Okay, it's so important. And then consider the Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and sacred sexuality values and see if they match. So really, it's a way of really knowing yourself, diving deep into yourself. Knowing very good what are the values of Aphroditic sacred sexuality and see if this is for you. And then, of course, another important thing is to consciously choose your teacher, because it's also and very much about choosing your teacher. It's an attraction and a magnetic attraction between two souls, the teacher and the student, and it's something irresistible. It's something for life that calls us to our right teacher from centuries, something special that calls from the past, the relationship thread between teacher and student. And this magnetic force between teacher and student, you cannot ignore it. You will feel it. Sometimes there is more than one teacher, which is good. Some other times we feel we have one teacher only, which is good as well. But it's something really to listen to, and our body tells us through the emotions and through the sensations of the body, we recognize our teacher when we meet her or him. So answering to the question, shall I choose Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and sacred sexuality or Tantra? Just answer to these questions, consider your value, feel the teacher. And give yourself also the chance to experiment. Why not? Well, I hope this episode was practically useful for you and that it contributed to make some clarity about the points in common and the differences between Tantra and Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and sacred sexuality. As always, I want to remind you that this Aphrodisia project is possible thanks to people like you. So if you want to support it, this is you are the reason why we keep continuing producing these episodes. So if you want to support Aphrodisia project, you can not only like and subscribe to the channels, both podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes and Spotify, but you can find also the international channel on YouTube, Maia Vassallo di Floro International, and subscribe and click on the bell icon to receive a notification every time that a new episode is born. But also the best thing you can do is to share with other people that out there might be confused, might feel alone, might feel without any reference point, and they think maybe there no help, with nobody to share these values. Well, there is this project Aphrodisia to gather people together within the Aphroditic values, to create together an Aphroditic world made of pleasure, beauty, sacredness, care and magic. So share with all your friends, partners, parents, daughters, son, whomever you think might benefit from this episode. And also, please, you can take some time, just a few seconds, to leave us a 5-star if you are listening the podcast, or to write down your feedback if you're listening from YouTube. I will personally read it and will be happy to answer it. And as always, we meet every Thursday, so see you next Thursday with a new Aphrodisia episode. Bye bye.